Sure. Are we just gonna, John, if you can go to the About Whiting-Turner section?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, obviously, welcome students. Just to give you a brief overview of who Whiting-Turner is. Well, since 1909, Whiting-Turner has been a privately owned general contractor. This means that operations and finances are completely independent. There are no shareholders or people outside of our company telling us what to do and how to manage the people within. Everything is kept in-house, and what Whiting-Turner benefits as a company goes back directly to the employees. We've been in industry for over 100 years, over 110 years, which means over obviously a century of work and happy clients that help maintain our progress in the industry. This really stems from the morale this company was founded on and what we were taught to be. Whiting-Turner now has over 4,100 employees and is growing as we speak. According to ENR, or the Engineering News Record, if you follow, we are ranked 4th out of 400 top GCs in the US for the year 2020, which we topped from last year where we ranked 5th. John, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So growth of the company. Whiting-Turner is a nationwide company, currently has 52 active offices. With Whiting-Turner being so expansive, it provides the opportunity for you to work in other locations if a particular project demanded it. Due to the Bay Area being so high in demand with work, our goal for Pleasanton is to grow our personnel here. However, there are instances or emergencies where people need to leave and can transfer and still be a part of the Whiting-Turner family. With the amount of offices that we have and employees, you might be concerned with the feeling of being a small fish in a big pond, but Whiting-Turner does a really, really good job of giving you opportunity to grow vastly as a young engineer, a young project engineer or field engineer when you come on board. Next slide.
Okay, so perfect. How does Whiting-Turner structure itself? As Kim touched, we have over 120 operating groups across the board, yet Whiting-Turner manages to keep the small business approach. Here in the Bay Area, we have 7 of our groups, which are further subdivided specific per project. All right, we can go on to the next slide, covering the industries that we take part in. Just listing here a couple of our top for this year were data centers, offices, science and tech, residential, and entertainment. Just to touch on, in the past years, we have changed slightly, and just proving itself that we adapt to the needs of just what's going on and in the sectors. Where do we rank? So we are first in both retail and healthcare by the Commercial Construction Magazine. We are second top university construction firm and third top BIM construction per the BDC. We're third general building contractor by ENR, and as Kim mentioned, 4th of the top 400. And just to give you a quick reference, back in 2008, when Gabe started with Whiting-Turner, we were ranked 15 on the ENR listings. So here we like to show a couple of our repeated clientele. We believe that our company culture and our core values towards excellence, leadership, and experience have allowed us to establish a repeated clientele to where we are not chasing work. We're doing repeated work for example, Kaiser, Google, Disney, here locally, Stanford, and Westfield. Next slide. Here we can touch on some of our Whiting-Turner projects. in the different sectors, healthcare being one of them. If you go to the next slide. As we touched on, Kaiser is one of our repeated clienteles. Predominantly, we were doing work with them in SoCal, and we've gained more work with them here in the North Cal, Sacramento region. Next slide. Handing it off to Kim for higher ed.
So for higher education, science and technology, we're definitely big around here in the Bay Area and several universities, particularly one nearby you, probably Stanford University. Next slide, John. So Stanford's a huge client of ours, and we've had the pleasure to build very heavily in the research and medical departments. My entire career has actually been at Stanford University, and I've completed, and within those near 5 years, completed 2 ground up projects. Next slide, John. So these projects here are my 2 babies. They are completed in the years that I've obviously been here. Stanford Bass Bio is a research building. And the fun fact with this building is that one of the scientists here studies butterflies. So a lot of the landscape design was really catered towards that. And then the Stanford ChemH Neuroscience Lab was a 2-part building to provide a collaborative center for the fields of chemistry, engineering, medicine, to meet with their neuroscience team and help develop science and medicine in that new way. Next slide. We also do work at Davis. We're currently working in early phases of design over there for several new ground up buildings that contain a ton of demo work, fit out, and like I said earlier, ground up. Next slide. The School of Medicine, we are a heavy client for them as well at Stanford. We also completed a large energy facility that provides a more efficient method to distribute hot water throughout the campus. Not only did we do this building, but we did all of the underground piping for it throughout the building. Next slide.
Touching on retail. Retail for us is the backbone of the company and especially helped us through the recession of 2008. Here we get to see some of the projects that we've been part of here locally. So in Fremont, the Pacific Commons, Stanford Shopping Center, Westfield again is one of our repeated clients. Valley Fair was one of our projects here locally, which we had to bring an traveling group to cover that project there. Next slide. Just a couple more that we can see. There's the Livermore Fallon Gateway Plaza in Walnut Creek, the Orchids, Pleasanton Gateway, and here locally, the Westgate Center. Touching on entertainment.
So here we really just want to show you some really fun photos of where we've laid boots on the ground for. Obviously, we've done work in Las Vegas, and obviously, since we're a nationwide company, we've done projects all the way back to our motherland in Maryland. And then next slide. So these are, as a huge Disney fan, personally, I'm very, very proud of. Last but not least, just wanted to show you a quick photo of work that we did in Anaheim for the Star Wars Galaxy Edge. The fun fact about this project is that there was the idea of a design once, build twice. So we did both the Southern California park and the Florida park for this.
All right, so I think that kind of covers the basis of the projects we were just talking about. And then kind of moving more transitioning into the BIM BDC aspect of Whiting Turner. And I think this is what we were trying to get the presentation for. And a lot of what people consider BIM on a job is basically just the model. But at Whiting Turner, we like to approach that a little bit differently. It's more than just the model. Model is one part of it, but there are many moving aspects of BIM and VDC and how we incorporate technology into a project. In this video, this is one aspect that's basically showing site logistics and phasing, how we plan to approach a specific project. And we generally do this for, a lot of our mid-sized to large projects, mainly in the pursuit phase, as well as a little bit in the pre-construction phase, just to give the client an understanding of how we plan on, getting things built, as well as access, and showing our methodology versus, potentially someone else's, what makes it unique. How can we turn over this building faster to someone, and give them a little bit of an edge in that sort of aspect. And it also looks cool, right? People like to look at cool videos of their project getting built. So it's nice to see an owner's reaction to that. But kind of going back, really BIM on the construction side really all starts with a tech assessment. And this kind of involves the entire project team, mainly the lead project managers on the job and the BIM VDC department. We'd like to get together and basically assess what's going to be the best technology for their job. There's a lot of different technologies out there, and not everyone fits every project and every criteria. There's different budgets for different projects, small projects, big projects, and then the project team. What are they used to? What do they like? It's just kind of a moving target to hit, but we like to sit down and kind of go over those goals and objectives first. So with that, I'd like to kind of go over some cool technologies that we've implemented in some of our jobs and kind of how they've been used and what type of projects they fit into. So starting with Alice Technologies, this is a relatively newer technology out there. Basically, it is an AI engine that you upload your model to, give it some parameters on how you think some sequencing will be done, and it runs through millions of options and ends up spitting out the best possible option for you. So kind of diving deep, and also just a general note for this presentation: if you have any questions, feel free to stop me. I'd like to kind of keep it open. So going into a little bit of this process, basically, again, you take the model, you upload it up, and that's where we start a little bit of grouping. Architectural models and construction models, they don't necessarily come in the way that we would construct it out on site, right? Slabs like to get split up, columns like to get grouped, structural steel likes to get grouped. In this case down here, we want to group all the columns by floor because that's the type of line item we'd want to see in our schedule. So it's grouping all of those elements together. The next step would be adding constraints, or what we like to call predecessor successors in the scheduling world. So basically, you have your slab. After your slab, next can be your columns, and then after those columns are installed, then you can move on to the next floor, right? Just creating that sequence of events to help generate your construction schedule. After that, it's creating what they call recipes. And these are essentially schedule fragments. This is the weeds of Alice. You can get really in depth, or you can get pretty vague depending on the level of detail that you want to show within your schedule. And again, this is just, what is the sequence of events to creating that slab? First, it's the rebar, then you pour your concrete, then you finish it, and then you cure it, right? And then you move on to the next item. That's applying that information into a recipe. And then lastly, it's running schedules and looking at the results, which is the fun part of Alice. So when you run a schedule, basically you want to stay on that far left-hand side as possible. You want to be close to that 0, 0 mark. That basically shows that your schedule is the cheapest and shortest duration. And the cool thing with this is you can run multiple scenarios on different aspects of the job. You can change your crew sizes to see how that affects your project duration. And it's all done within a few minutes. So we've had some good success with it on some of our projects so far. And kind of one of the cool things we saw on the project insight side of this was this crew utilization on the right-hand side, where you can see that we had 6 crews assumed for a specific task. But then we took a look and noticed that, hey, these crews aren't actually getting utilized to their fullest extent. We actually have too many. So what happens when we reduce that down to 3 and we got a much better crew utilization, which then in turn turns into a happier subcontractor, right?
Hey,
Because
John.
we don't want, yes.
Yeah, let me ask a quick question. So it's great to see this slide because we are going to learn next week how to do resource leveling using MS Project and Primavera
Mhm.
software. So it looks like this user interface is Alice, right?
This is Alice, correct?
I see. The previous one is also Alice as well, right?
Yes, these were all Alice.
Okay, this is great software.
This is yeah, it's very unique and very new. And the cool thing is this does, when you're done with this does import into P6. So
I
you
think,
can create a
my
Primavera
colleague,
schedule.
for the Martin Fisher, Professor Martin Fisher is deeply involved in developing this Alice scheduling, Alice software.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, it's very unique, very cool, and we definitely like to use it. But yeah, so then going back to that instance of the crews is, you know, having people or telling your subcontractor you're gonna have 6 crews and then they show up with nothing to do. They're not going to be happy. They might not provide the manpower the next time you ask them. So having this information up front really solves and helps those conversations in the long run. So kind of going into, you know, what is it good for? Really, it's good for the large projects that we have and something that has complex sequencing. We're not really going to use Alice Technologies for a small box that, you know, there's only one way to build it. It's going to be the tough, mind-bending scenarios where we're not necessarily sure how we want to approach the project, and that way it can kind of narrow us down and guide us into the correct direction, correct approach. So moving on, HoloLens. So this is fairly new, but it's been around for a little bit. But basically using augmented reality out in the field to help QC and verify installation. So this photo down here was actually taken a few days ago down at the Central Energy facility that Kimberly was showing you guys. And basically what Jack is doing is he's taking these classes and he's looking up and seeing the model and reviewing that the new construction that's going to go inside there. So to give you a better example, let's see if this will play for me. This guy, he's another BDC engineer, I think out of the Florida office. He's walking a high rise right now. They've loaded a model in place into the HoloLens. And as he's walking around, that model is staying in place so he can review what's about to get installed, make sure there's no obstructions, or he can then, in another case, he can load an area that has been installed and then take a look and make sure that what is installed has been aligned out in the field, or it's been installed in the field correctly. And this really helps young PEs that are coming into the field that may not necessarily know, hey, can you go check that mechanical pipe coming out of the ducts or coming out of the chillers? And they may not necessarily know that, right, coming out of college. So if they give them these classes, tell them to load up the model and verify what's installed is installed correctly. I think that's something that pretty much everyone can do. So it really helps narrow that down, gives us an overall better QC process. And it's pretty fun to walk around the field with these.
Hi, John. So
yeah,
it looks like you already had a BIM file being integrated in this HoloLens, right?
Correct.
So you can, before the construction, you can see what is expected. And then after construction, you can also check for the verification purpose, right?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Those are the two main use cases. There's another software out there that lets you review installation sequence, but it's fairly expensive. We generally tend to stay away from that one. But verification and review next installed is the main case. again, project use cases, we're going to use this on our larger to mid-sized projects. We're not really going to use the HoloLens on a Target remodel unless there's a really specific need for it. But or there's a complex MEP system, right? We have a small job in Kaiser, San Francisco, renovating 3 operating rooms. There's lots of complex MEP in those overhead departments, and it's going to be during a live in-use facility. So we need to make sure that what we're installing is correct. So there's a potential use case for bringing out a HoloLens and making sure everything that we install will be installed correctly. Next one is Assemble Systems. This is one of my personal favorites just because it's so diverse and what we can do with it. Basically, you upload your model into Assemble and we get all of the metadata that comes out of that. And what this really helps with is model-based takeoffs. So we can grab any quantity that's within the model. We can track change management. We can also add custom parameters and start tracking work in place and create some pretty powerful reports from Assemble Systems. So primarily the type of quantities we like to pull out of Assemble are what we call smash and grabs, basically easy items that should be modeled correctly, like concrete, steel, glazing. These are all items that we can quickly grab in the model and then verify against a manual takeoff. In this case, it is concrete, and it's able to, just by selecting, grab the cubic yardage. We can also get the square foot. And really, we're not going to upload a model and run with the quantity right off the bat. We're going to look at the model. We're going to verify it against the manual takeoff first, make sure that it's accurate. And then once we start building trust in this model, that's when we'll start pulling information directly from the model. Maybe we won't rely on a project engineer taking off all the time. Save some time in the long run and have them focus on something else. Extremely powerful during pre-construction phase for this part.
John, what is this software?
What is this what?
What is this software?
Top 2.
This is software, right? You use.
This is Assemble Systems.
Assemble Systems. Is that the name of a software?
Yes.
I see.
So with that, once we get the model uploaded in here, we can also apply unit cost data to this. So basically, if we know that the concrete is going to be $290 a cubic yard, we can put that information into Assemble, and then it'll spit out a total cost for us. So it can quickly start providing budget numbers for us as well.
John, so
yeah.
the quantity is taken up automatically from your 3D model. So what about the unit cost? Did you enter unit cost specifically, or do you have any cost database? You can just connect?
We enter the unit cost ourselves.
Yeah. And Dr. Sion, we used historical data from previous projects and projects that are recently completed, and we also look back in 2008 when things were built and seeing how things progress and seeing inflation. So the unit cost isn't in Assemble, but we use, at Stanford, we have pretty consistent unit costs that we can apply to certain buildings and stuff like that.
Great. Thank you, Victor.
No problem.
Yeah, and then we can also condition this model and this information into a format that we want to see it. If this, we can apply unit cost and unit format data into this model and have it organized that way. So that way it matches our estimate in a one-to-one fashion. And that's the overall goal with Assemble as far as estimating goes.
This is huge during the pre-construction phase when we're seeing iterations of the model, and we can definitely figure out if the architect is telling us the truth, whether or not they've increased the size of a building or increased square footage of the skin system. So this is huge especially during the pre-construction phase.
Yep. And it really holds
significantly in terms of time and cost.
It really holds the architect accountable as well, because what is in this model should theoretically be what's on their drawings, and if it's not, there's an issue there. There's a quality control issue that we need to address. Moving on with this, another powerful thing that Assemble does is it does show change management. So we can compare what has changed on a week-to-week basis between two models and quickly identify that and what type of change it was, whether it was a type change, a quantity change, and then we can see how much that was reduced by or increased by. So if 1 week we see, an increase of the building square footage by 1,000 square feet, we can say, Mr. Architect, Mrs. Architect, what happened here? We weren't expecting this change. Can you let us know? And either they'll let us know that the building did in fact change, or it was just a mistake on their end. We can continue on. But a pretty powerful tool nonetheless to see what has changed and quickly identify what's changed. And then on top of that, with the ability to track all this information and store all this information within Assemble, is we can pull it out and we can start creating our own graphs. And as Gabe mentioned earlier, we can pull all this information, and it's extremely helpful during the pre-construction phase. In this case, this was for a design build project where we were in charge of the designers at this point. So we wanted to make sure that what they were designing was on track to align with our budget. So we pulled the information out of Assemble, threw it into these nice charts, and threw in a line at the top that showed represented our FGMP number that they basically should be below theoretically or at. They shouldn't be above that line. And it really helps track the changes on a week-to-week basis and keep the design team and the owner informed on what's going on with the design, how is it progressing, and are we on budget. I think the last piece of technology I just wanted to touch on just briefly was 360 photo documentation. This is something that's used on every project, just for the sheer fact that it provides so much value to the team. Being able to walk the job site virtually. What happens is once a week, once a day, whatever the cadence is, we have someone take a 360 camera and walk the job site. When they come back, they upload all those photos that were taken back up to whatever software platform we're using at the time. And then once it's done processing, we can take a look at pretty much every square inch of the building and review progress from that date, and then go back to any time period that we have available, right? So the biggest thing about taking a photo of every square inch of the building is we may not necessarily know what we're looking for the time we take the photo. This happens all the time, whether something gets damaged or we want to track when something was installed, when was drywall covered up. We may not necessarily have all that information offhand, but having all these photos available really makes that a lot easier and helps the project team in an invaluable way. Especially during times of COVID, we're not all able to be on the job site all the time. So being able to send a link to someone so they can quickly walk to the job site virtually is pretty invaluable.
Yeah, I think, John, this is very important. That this is the process for creating the digital twin, right?
Digital twin?
Yeah.
Are you talking about like a point cloud?
Yeah, I think what kind of device do you use for this?
We use just a standard 360 photo. I think primarily it's the Insta1R, but we have used laser scanners in the past. That's a slightly different process.
Okay. Have you ever tried the Matterport?
The Matterport, yes, yeah. The Matterport is very nice. It gives you a really detailed image, and it all comes in point cloud data. It's like a laser scanner. The only problem with it is the files are massive that come out of it. So they're hard to deal with and hard to transfer. And the scan time is a lot longer. With something like these 360 photos, we're able to turn it on, essentially take a video, walk around the job site, and stop within 5 minutes, and then have all that information available to us. the Matterport may take 2 to 3 days to kind of gather all that same information.
Oh, I see. That's huge data.
Yeah, so Dr. Pion, we even use this in presentations. I believe the program we use is Struction Site.
Mhm.
And we pull up during a presentation I had about 3 weeks ago, we pulled up a TI we were interviewing for, and we pulled up some pictures and showed them, hey, these are where we see issues in, you know, the design, because it was a completely design build project, and
Mhm.
how Stanford wanted to address it. And that kind of got them thinking on how they actually wanted to complete their design. So, you know, being able to show them how we walk through the building and show them every inch of their building, and how we're looking at things also kind of highlights how we're using all these technologies on jobs that we don't even have. So
Yeah, that's a great point. It's an absolutely great point. This is just another use case. This is the Stanford Central Energy Facility again. We're adding 4 more chillers to the existing plant, and this is Cupix. Actually, it's another 360 photo documentation software. They have the ability to import your BIM model into their software, and then you can import your BIM model into the 360 photo, which then allows you to review potential conflicts, and can start that next conversation, or just review what that work in place will look like once it's installed. And those are the main objects I wanted to talk to today. I kind of ran through those pretty quickly, but I'd like to open up to any questions if anyone has any questions.
Okay, students, if you have any questions, you can ask the question right now. Okay, you can also use the chatting box. John, let me ask you
Yep.
one more thing. So when you show me the simulation job site logistics,
Yes.
the
The first
slide,
slide. Yep.
use Navisworks, or do you have any other, the VDC software for that purpose?
So this process generally involves multiple softwares. We'll take the design models or the structural models and potentially the construction models from our trade partners and designers, and then we'll bring them into a rendering software, either Lumion or Twinmotion, Unreal Engine, any of the above. And this is when we can start animating, splitting up the model, and start creating these logistical views. There's another software if we really want to get into the weeds of how a schedule or how a project's scheduled and show that in 4D. It would be Synchro.
Synchro, the Bentley's.
Yeah. That's another one we commonly use, and that's basically taking the P6 schedule and then start applying line items to objects in the model and showing a growth simulation.
John, are you in charge of this, or do you use any outsourced?
At Whiting-Turner, this is all the VDC department. We do this all in-house.
It's under your company, right?
Correct.
I see.
yeah, we've started our own VDC group since I've started about maybe 8 years ago. We used to hire out all of the VDC stuff. When I first started, we had a company do the 3D coordination, and they weren't that great. So I actually ended up running the model and doing 3D coordination right out of college. So that was kind of our big step in getting into the VDC world ourselves.
Wow, that was about 12 years ago.
Yep. So when I was in your class and you were talking about company starting this 3D model and 3D coordination, in my mind, I was like, there's no way that can happen. And lo and behold, my first job out of college, I was doing it.
And it's not, at this point too, it's not just VDC professionals doing coordination. Coordination is a very simple aspect at this point now. It's so commonplace that a lot of young PEs are starting to get involved with coordination.
And we really promote getting our PEs and newer field engineers to learn how to use a model, learn how things are built, and definitely so that but they can walk through, and it makes the QC process easier as well during projects.
Yep.
You know, now you can bring, you know, when I first started, I would have to bring my laptop out to the computer, open the model and run it. Now everything can be done on an iPad. So makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah, with the capability of bringing the models out in your iPad to the field, you know, helps the field team out tremendously, especially the younger FEs and PEs out there.
Okay, great. Thank you for your cooperation and your presentation. I really enjoyed your, all the state-of-art technologies being implemented. Even, AI, Alice is a great operation level project management software. This is going to be maybe next game changer.
Yeah,
I didn't know that you are, fully integrating Alice technology for your projects.
Especially in the Bay Area with these really big mega projects that are always going up with all the big Fortune 500 companies wanting to do. I almost think it as an arms race for who has the coolest headquarters. Google obviously has a cool one, and Apple has a cool one. So I feel like with everyone wanting to have the best, most complicated project, this will really help.
absolutely. Yeah, if you had asked me which, 2 technologies I think are going to be most influential coming up, I think Alice Technologies and Assemble Systems